Most people spend their entire lives dreaming of a US green card without realizing they might already be eligible for one of the secret paths the government doesn't exactly advertise. If you think you need to be a millionaire or a genius to live in America permanently, you've been told a lie that is keeping you from your dream. Today, we are pulling back the curtain on the entire US immigration system to show you exactly how a green card works. We are going to cover everything from the family members who can sponsor you to the job skills that get you to the front of the line. I'll even explain that famous lottery where you can win a permanent life in the States just by being born in the right country. We're going to open the loop on how long this actually takes, what it costs, and the one mistake people make at their interview that ruins everything. Stick around, because by the end of this, you'll know more than most immigration lawyers do about the step-by-step path to becoming a lawful permanent resident. Let's start with the basics because there is a lot of confusion out there. A green card is officially called a permanent resident card. It isn't actually green anymore. Well, it has some green on it, but it's mostly a high-tech plastic card that proves you have the right to live and work in the United States forever. Think of it like a forever pass. Unlike a tourist visa where you have to leave after a few months, or a student visa where you have to keep going to school, a green card lets you settle down. You can buy a house, start a business, and travel in and out of the country without hassle. The biggest perk is that after you've had this card for a few years, usually 5 years, or 3 if you're married to an American, you can apply to become a full US citizen. That means you get a blue passport and the right to vote. But before we get to the passport, we have to get the card. To get it, you have to be admissible. That's a fancy government word that basically means you aren't a criminal, you don't have a dangerous contagious disease, and you aren't going to run out of money and need the government to pay for your life. If you have a clean record and a plan, you're already halfway there. There aren't a million ways to get a green card. There are really only 4 big doors you can walk through. The first and most common door is family. If you have a relative who is already a US citizen or a green card holder, they can sponsor you. This means they tell the government, hey, this is my person, and I'll make sure they have a place to stay. If you marry a US citizen, you are in the fast lane. You are considered an immediate relative, and there is no limit on how many spouses of citizens can come in each year. The same goes for parents of citizens and unmarried children under 21. But if you are a brother or sister of a citizen, get ready to wait. That line is very long, sometimes 20 years long depending on where you are from. The second door is employment. This is for the workers. There are 5 levels here, called EB1 through EB5. EB1 is for the extraordinary people. Think Olympic athletes, world-famous scientists, or high-level Oscar winners. If you are the best in the world at what you do, the US wants you. EB2 and EB3 are for professionals with degrees or skilled workers like chefs or construction experts. EB4 is a bit of a catch-all for special immigrants like religious workers. And EB5? That's the investor path. If you have about $800,000 to $1 million to invest in a US business that creates 10 jobs, you can essentially buy your way in. The third door is the one everyone loves, the diversity visa lottery. Every year, the US government gives away 55,000 green cards to people from countries that don't send many immigrants to the US. It is completely random. It's free to enter, and if you win, you and your family get to move to the US. It sounds like a fairy tale, but thousands of people move to places like Ohio or Florida every year just because their name was picked out of a digital hat. The fourth door is the humanitarian path. This is for people who are afraid to go back to their home country because they might be hurt or killed. This includes refugees and asylum seekers. There are also special protections for victims of human trafficking or domestic abuse. The US has laws that say if you are in a truly dangerous or heartbreaking situation, they will give you a safe place to live and eventually a green card. Once you figure out which door you're using, you have to start the paperwork. This is called the petition phase. If you're doing the family route, your relative files a form called the I-130. This form basically asks the government to recognize that you are actually related. You'll need birth certificates, marriage licenses, and lots of photos to prove your relationship isn't a fake one just to get a card. If you're doing the job route, your boss usually files an I-140. But before they can even do that, they often have to go through something called PERM. This is where the Department of Labor makes your boss prove that they tried to hire an American worker first but couldn't find anyone who could do the job as well as you. It's a long process of running ads in newspapers and interviewing people just to prove you are the best fit. Once that petition is filed, you get a priority date. Think of this as your ticket number at a deli. You have to wait for your number to be called. The government only gives out a certain number of green cards each year for each category and each country. This is where people get stuck. If you are from a country with a lot of people moving to the US, like India, China, or Mexico, your wait time might be years or even decades. How do you know when it's your turn? You have to check the visa bulletin. Every month, the State Department publishes a chart that looks like a confusing math homework assignment. It lists the dates they are currently working on. If the chart says current, it means there is no wait, and you can move to the next step right now. If it lists a date from 5 years ago, it means you have to wait until your filing date matches that date. There are 2 columns to watch: final action dates and dates for filing. One tells you when you can send in your final application, and the other tells you when they can actually give you the card. It's like waiting in a massive line at a theme park. You see the signs that say 60 minutes from this point, but in immigration, that sign might say 6 years from this point. Understanding this bulletin is the difference between being prepared and being caught off guard when your life is suddenly uprooted. There are 2 ways to actually get the card once your number is called. If you are already inside the US on a different visa, maybe a student visa or a work visa, you do something called adjustment of status. You file a form called I-485. This is great because you don't have to leave the country. You stay right where you are, and eventually, your status just adjusts to permanent resident. But if you are living outside the US, you go through consular processing. This means you deal with the US Embassy in your home country. You'll fill out a form called the DS-260 online. This path is often faster than the one inside the US, but it's more stressful because you have to go to an interview in a big government building and hope they give you the visa so you can fly to America. One of the biggest hurdles is the Affidavit of Support, or Form I-864. The US government is very worried about people coming to the country and needing welfare or food stamps. To prevent this, your sponsor has to prove they make enough money to support you. They have to show their tax returns for the last 3 years. If they don't make enough money, you have to find a joint sponsor, a friend or another relative who is willing to sign a contract with the government saying they will pay for your needs if you can't. It's a huge legal responsibility. If you ever end up using certain government benefits, the government can actually sue your sponsor to get that money back. It's a serious promise. Before you get your card, you have to go to a special doctor called a civil surgeon. You can't just go to your regular doctor. This doctor will check you for things like tuberculosis and make sure you have all your shots, like measles, mumps, and even the flu shot depending on the season. If you hate needles, this part is no fun, but it's mandatory. Then comes the biometrics appointment. This sounds high-tech, but it's just a 10-minute visit to a government office where they take your fingerprints in a digital photo. They use these to run a background check through the FBI and other agencies to make sure you haven't been getting into trouble. If you've ever been arrested, even for something small, this is where it will pop up, so you have to be honest on your application. Now, we hit a major challenge. Many people think that once they send their papers, they just wait for the card. But often, months later, you get a yellow or blue letter in the mail. This is the request for evidence, or RFE. This is a moment of pure panic for most people. The government is saying, we don't believe you, or you forgot something. Maybe they don't think your marriage is real because you didn't send enough pictures. Maybe they think your boss didn't pay you enough. An RFE stops your application in its tracks. You usually have about 30 to 90 days to respond. If you miss the deadline or don't give them exactly what they want, they will deny your application, and you might have to start over or, worse, leave the country. This is the climax of the stress for most immigrants. It's a test of your patience and your record keeping. Always keep every receipt, every pay stub, and every photo. You never know when you'll need to prove your life to a stranger in an office. If you make it past the RFE, you get the interview. If you're inside the US, you'll go to a local USCIS office. If you're outside, it's at the embassy. If it's a marriage-based card, they will interview you and your spouse together. Sometimes, if they suspect something is fishy, they will put you in separate rooms and ask you the same questions to see if your stories match. They might ask what color your toothbrush is, what you ate for breakfast, or which side of the bed you sleep on. For a job-based card, the interview is much more relaxed. They just want to make sure you're actually doing the job you said you were doing and that you aren't a security threat. The key here is to stay calm and tell the truth. If you don't know an answer, it's better to say I don't know than to guess and look like you're lying. Most officers are just regular people trying to finish their work for the day. If your paperwork is in order and you're a genuine person, you'll do just fine. At the end of the interview, the officer might say the words you've been waiting for: "Congratulations, I'm recommending your application for approval." It's an incredible feeling. If you're at an embassy, they take your passport and mail it back to you a few days later with a big, colorful visa inside. When you land in the US, the officer at the airport stamps it, and that stamp acts as your green card until the plastic one arrives in the mail a few weeks later. But wait, there's a catch for some people. If you've been married for less than 2 years when you get approved, you don't get a permanent green card. You get a conditional one. It's only good for 2 years. This is the government's way of making sure you didn't just get married to get the card. 2 years later, you have to file more paperwork to prove you are still married and still in love. Only then do you get the 10-year permanent card. Once you have that card in your hand, you might think you're done. But you have to protect it. A green card isn't a get-out-of-jail-free card. If you commit a serious crime, you can still be deported. Also, you have to actually live in the US. If you leave the US for more than 6 months at a time, the government might think you've abandoned your residency. If you stay away for more than a year without special permission, they can take your card away at the airport when you try to come back. You also have to file US taxes every year, even if you earn money in another country. Being a permanent resident means the US is your home. You have to treat it like your home. Every 10 years, you have to renew the physical card, just like a driver's license. It doesn't mean your status expires, just that the plastic card needs a new photo and updated security features. The final step for many is naturalization. After 5 years of holding your green card, or 3 years if you're still married to the citizen who sponsored you, you can apply to become a US citizen. You'll have to pass a civics test where you answer questions about US history, like who is the first president, or how many amendments does the Constitution have. You also have to show you can speak, read, and write basic English. Once you pass that, you go to a ceremony, take an oath of allegiance to the United States, and hand over your green card. In exchange, they give you a naturalization certificate. You are now a citizen. You can get a US passport, you can vote in elections, and you never have to worry about immigration paperwork ever again. It is the end of a very long, very expensive, and very emotional journey. I want to be real with you for a second. The reason people fail isn't usually because the law is too hard. It's because they try to take shortcuts. They lie about a job, or they try to hide a past arrest, or they enter a fake marriage. The US government is very good at finding these things out. They have databases that talk to other countries, and they have officers who are trained to spot liars. The most successful people are the ones who are patient. They find a legitimate path, whether through school, or real job, or a real relationship, and they follow the rules.